The Sum of the Matter. Episode 2. What is truth? Disclaimer. If you haven't read or listened to our backstory yet, we encourage everyone that is new here to start there. That way you'll get a glimpse into our past and a peek at where we are now. As we continue to explore the ancient text of the Hebrew Bible and consider whether or not the words found therein are true, we invite you to come along on our journey, a journey for the plain and simple. We are not scholars and don't claim to be. In fact, we are only high school educated and self-taught thinkers and studiers. We're also not necessarily authors either. We are trying the best we can to express our thoughts and opinions, but we find it is not always easy nor eloquent in how to dictate our thoughts into words. We have come to the current conclusion that the more you think you know, the more you realize that you don't know anything at all. However, if there is a God, and if He has a purpose for our life, including directions on how best to live it, we believe it is our duty to know, to do, and to share to the best of our ability. We never thought we would find ourselves here, questioning our worldview and deconstructing everything we thought we knew. The thoughts found here are not written in stone, and our understanding may change at any time. We can't guarantee where this journey will take us, but if you find yourself there too, we hope you will join us. What is truth, and can we know it? Last year around this time, we began deconstructing the Christian truths that we have been taught since before we could remember, and determined that they were in fact a lie. As you can imagine, the shock is real, and I wouldn't say that we have fully grieved that loss. But here we are, trying to make sense of the world as we now see it. If you've read our backstory, even though we've left Christianity, we are still exploring the God of the Hebrew Bible and thinking critically about what that ancient text says. How does it hold up as truth? Laying aside our assumptions and preconceived notions, we are examining and questioning everything. Judeo-Christian theology is still arguably vastly different from all other religions, both in the way that it was revealed and documented, and by its monotheistic worldview versus other polytheistic religions. But can we really know anything? I'm not sure if I'll ever feel 100% confident again. That lingering doubt probably has a little something to do with the religious trauma I've experienced. But I am still hoping that I, and you, can find something meaningful and true. What does the word true mean anyway? Dictionary.com defines it as being in accordance with the actual state or conditions, conforming to reality or fact, not false. Okay, so truth agrees with reality. Seems simple enough. Since none of us were here at the beginning, or even several thousands of years ago, our best guess is evaluating ancient texts and using what we currently know of fact and reality. If I've learned anything lately, it's that I don't know much. There is a saying that goes something like this: you are only as great as the least among you. And I tend to agree with this statement. If we are considering whether the Hebrew Bible is true, our hypothesis is that if absolute truth does exist, it has to be the most obvious to the least intelligent among us. If it is in fact God's word to mankind, then it has to be able to be understood at even the most basic of levels. So, we reject the idea that the Hebrew text is too difficult for us to know, that we need a leader or pastor who understands it better than we do. If it is God's word to all mankind, we must be able to understand it ourselves. However, let's keep in mind that we are sorting through thousands of years of ideologies telling us what the text says. But what if we read it for ourselves? What if there is a plain, simple meaning? What if it is absolute truth? What if it's a different truth than most are teaching? Some people might say that there is no true reality, only perceptions and opinions. We don't see things the way they are, we see them the way we are. With this view, there are no absolutes that define reality. Everything is relative to something else. If this is what you believe, then there are no moral absolutes, no authority deciding whether an action is right or wrong. This belief system leads to situational ethics, that what is right or wrong is relative to the situation. Therefore, there is no right or wrong. Whatever feels right at that time and in that situation is right. It is easy to see how this belief leads to a subjective mentality and lifestyle. Unfortunately, this can have devastating and lasting effects on society and individuals. When every truth, lifestyle, belief, and value is valid, chaos ensues. Have you really taken the time to consider what it means to have no absolutes? A good question to ask people who say there is no absolute truth is this: are you absolutely sure of that? If they say yes, they have made an absolute statement, which in itself confirms the existence of absolutes. Besides the problem of self-contradiction, there are several other logical problems one must overcome to believe that there are no absolute or universal truths. One is that all humans have limited knowledge and finite minds, and therefore cannot logically make absolute negative statements. A person cannot logically say there is no God, even though many do so, because in order to make such a statement, he or she would need to have absolute knowledge of the entire universe from beginning to end. Since that is simply impossible, the most anyone can logically say is, with the limited knowledge I have, I do not believe there is a God. The opposite view would argue that there must be some absolute reality or truth, that there are indeed absolute realities and standards that define what is true and what is not. We therefore can measure those actions to the absolute standards. Consider the law of gravity, for instance. If it were not an absolute, we could not be certain that we could stand in one place without floating off into the abyss. Or if 1 + 1 did not always equal 2, the effects on civilization would be disastrous. Laws of science and mathematics would be irrelevant, and there would be no point in studying them. What a mess that would be. Thankfully, 1 + 1 does equal 2. There is absolute truth, and it can be found and understood. However, those who believe in absolute truth might use our consciences or experiences to defend their view. I'm not convinced that human conscience is evidence for anything, other than, in general, there is some kind of moral code that humanity is aware of. Most would agree that there is something wrong with murder, suffering, starvation, rape, etc., and that there are attributes that are positive or right that all should strive for: love, peace, compassion, generosity. Whether or not anyone follows this general moral code and how it is to be interpreted is another matter entirely. Some might argue what might be right for you does not mean it is right for me. While on the surface this seems to be appealing, deep down it means that everybody sets his or her own rules to live by and does what he or she thinks is right. Inevitably, it won't take long for one person's sense of right to clash with another's. What happens if it is right for me to ignore stop signs or speed well above the posted limit? I put many lives at risk. Or I might think it is right to steal from you because I want what you have, and it is easier to take it from you than to acquire it another way. But to you, this behavior is not right. Who decides? Clearly, when we are left to determine our standards of right and wrong, there are conflicts. If there is no absolute truth, no standard of right and wrong that we are all accountable to, then we can never be sure of anything. People would be free to do whatever they want, and no one could say those things would be wrong. There could be no government, no laws, and no justice, because who determines the standards? The majority or the minority? There would be issues with both. A world without absolutes would be the most terrifying world imaginable. Do you think that both sides could at the very least agree that science is evidence enough for absolute truth? Simply put, science is the pursuit of knowledge, the study of what we know and the quest to know more. Does science always get things right the first time? No. But all scientific study is by necessity founded upon the belief that there are objective realities existing in the world, and these realities can be discovered and proven. Without absolutes, what would there be to study? How could one know that the findings of science are real? So where does that leave us? If there is indeed a creator, then he becomes the standard for absolute truth, and it is his authority that establishes that truth.